Welcome to the first EnergyVaasa Talks webinar. The next ones will be in the upcoming months. Keep an eye out on our social media platforms for their dates and announcements. I would like to thank the organizers and partners of Energy Week for making this webinar series possible. Enjoy.
Welcome to our EnergyVaasa Talks webinar about why companies must change focus to circular economy and sustainability. We are glad to have 4 experts with us today from different parts of the Nordic countries, sharing their insight on circular economy and sustainability, each one from their perspective. We have Per Larshans talking about investments, and Nina Agard talking from an innovation perspective. Anna-Maja Pajukallio talks about legislation, and last, a company example with Kasper Larsen. My name is Nora Backlund, and I will lead you through today's topics together with Göran Östberg, Rasmus Hautala, and Thomas Knuts, project managers behind the Circular Economy Roadmap for the Österbotten region. If you have any questions to our speakers, please type them in the chat. With no further introductions, I ask you to give your full attention to our speakers. First out, Per Larshans.
Okay, thank you so much, Nora, and thank you, Vasa, for this invitation. Very important topic. How can business profit from a circular economy? How can we make sure that we use the resources that will be needed going forward? This is the theme that I'm going to talk about. First, let's zoom out a little bit. Let's start in a global perspective. Why is it important to develop into a circular economy? Well, many of the challenges that the world are facing are dependent on our environmental challenges, the planetary boundaries. On the left-hand side of the picture, we have the 9 planetary boundaries summarized. And any of those, if they bypass or surpass a different threshold, we might not be able to reverse it. And that might lead to that we as human beings are not able to live on the planet anymore. We have especially a target in our business development 2 of the planetary boundaries, and that's the phosphorus and the nitrogen cycle. It is a huge challenge, as we see here, but we believe there are possibilities. Secondly, on the right-hand side of the picture, we have Ellen MacArthur Foundation's publication that was published just ahead of the COP25 conference, the climate conference in Madrid. And it demonstrates the total carbon emissions that we are facing in the world. What we are talking about in the UN negotiations today are the climate perspective when it comes to transport, when it comes to power our houses or our industries. But this is just 50% of the total emissions. 50% are embedded in the material that we are using, everyday products that we have, and the infrastructure, and also the food that we are eating. So in order to have a possibility to reach the Paris Agreement's ambitions, we need to take in consideration both aspects, both the energy and the transportation, as well as the circular perspective. So how has it begun then? How has the history been? Well, we have developed our economy based on there have been unlimited amount of resources available. From 1850, when you were mining copper in the ore, you could have as much as 20% copper content in the ore. Today, we are mining ore that contains less than 0.2% of copper. And we can say the same similar in all metals that we are mining. The future, what do we need? Well, when we talk about a fossil-free economy without oil, it will need to a digitalized and electrified world. It means that we will need a lot of other resources. We'll definitely need more copper, more lithium, more cobalt, more iron, and it's hockey sticks going in the wrong direction. So what are happening? What are policymakers doing? Well, European Union has highlighted the most critical raw materials that we need to care for. And in 2014 there were the first list, or 2011 it was the first list of critical raw materials. Then there were 14 of them listed. Each of them can mean that we don't have the possibility to sustain the same economical growth, or we can't have enough of food being produced. Now in September year 2020, the last list was published by the European Union, and now they have listed 30 elements, each of them that we need to care for. And the 4 last elements that were added was directly connected to the electrification of the society, or batteries that we need to build. And here we have an example. In the northern part of Sweden, we are now building the first battery factory that will, of course, have a very positive effect for the northern part of Finland as well.
A question, Per. You said that availability of resources will be challenging in the future, and this would be a reason for looking at circular material flows. How do you think this will affect companies in the future and their resourcing?
We can take the Northvolt factory as a very concrete example here that we've been built outside of Skellefteå. They will need to source their resources from different parts. They're even setting up a recycling factory because they understand that they will need to get the batteries back, because the cobalt in the end, and lithium and other important minerals will be scarce. So how can companies secure the resources going forward? They need to take responsibility downstreams for where the products are turning up. So I would say that each and every company need to understand that this will impact your way of working. So try to find out what is the situation, where do you produce your product, where do you source your material today? And if you do that study, you will see that there will be risks. So the question is, how will you affect or be affected by a circular economy? Let me take Ragn-Sells as an example. We were a transport company in the 1881 when we were founded. Transport company with horses, transporting goods and people in and out of Stockholm. In the 1960s, we became a waste management company, making sure that we took care of the waste that the liner system was producing. Today, we are a recycler in the liner economy still. It means that people are giving us waste and say, please do something with it. We don't want it anymore, but we want you to take care of it and make something important of it. Well, what we have seen and understood is that in a circular economy, there is no longer waste. And then you don't need a waste management company. So therefore, we have developed methods going forward and different kind of innovations that we will need going forward as well in a circular economy. And I will try to be as concrete as possible and demonstrate some of the innovations that we have invested in. We are a family-owned company, so we have really the long-term perspective. And this is, I think, also a reason why we don't want to maximize the profit short-term. We make sure that the company can last forever. And we, therefore, circular economy and investment in circular economy is a definite for us. How do we develop our solutions? Well, when we decide to invest in innovation or in research or in new company, they need to fulfill those 3 criteria you have on the picture. It means that the innovation need to recirculate back resources so we can reduce the amount or the need of virgin production somewhere else. Secondly, we need to make sure that we decontaminate, take away as much unwanted substances as possible. And thirdly, of course, we shouldn't put any hindrances to future generations to care for. So take responsibility here and now. If you fulfill those 3 criteria, then we will definitely invest or try to invest. And if we see a concrete example of Ragn-Sells from 30 years from now, we will be a raw material producer, and we have specially targeted, in this case, nutrients, phosphorus, nitrogen, and potassium. And they are the macronutrients that you need to produce food. So Ragn-Sells is definitely the start of the food production in the future. Let's start with the nitrogen, and of course how we produce nitrogen today. Nitrogen are produced by the Haber-Bosch method. It means that you take natural gas and incinerate it, and then you take down the nitrogen from the atmosphere. It emits a lot of carbon emissions when the natural gas is incinerated. Then you produce the fertilizer. Then you use it on the fields, and then in the end it ends up in our toilets and in the wastewater treatment plants. Here we have another problem, because the nitrogen shouldn't be in the water. It creates challenges when it comes to the health issue, and it causes a risk to cause eutrophication, meaning if it leaks out in our rivers and ends up in our oceans. So therefore you need to take it out of the water before you flush out the water to the sea. This is done by a biological method today. It means that you emit a lot of laughing gas, 300 times as much potent gas as the carbon dioxide up to the atmosphere. We have developed a method, and it's supported by EU Life, where we are with a chemical circular method being able to recirculate the nitrogen directly from the wastewater and directly produce a fertilizer. We are doing this in collaboration with the city of Copenhagen and their wastewater treatment plant. And in 2023, we will be able to offer this to the market. And the good thing with this solution is that today's way of recirculating the nitrogen, you bypass the atmosphere. Here we don't need to go through the atmosphere. It's a low energy process, and it will definitely reduce the cost for society as well. So it's really a win-win-win. That was the nitrogen. Now let's talk about phosphorus. Phosphorus is the basic ingredients for life. Without phosphorus, we wouldn't exist as human beings. It's a part of our DNA. The phosphorus are today that we use in the food production are mined, and there are very few mines in the world where you have a lot of resources. The majority of the biggest reserves are in Morocco, almost 80% of the total known reserves in the world, and it contains a lot of cadmium and uranium. What we have done is that we have developed a process where we can, out of the sludge, extract the phosphorus to the highest quality you can reach on the market. At the same time as we also can recirculate back the other products, the other thing that are contained in the sludge. And of course, the heavy metals then are separated. In 2018, we had the honor to was invited to New York and high-level political forum, where we became the example for innovation and leadership for the SDGs. And after that, we signed the first agreement in Germany to develop a solution for Gelsenwasser. And in Germany, they are really one of the forerunners in Europe. They have put a demand for phosphorus recovery, making sure that the wastewater treatment plant can't waste them anymore. They need to make sure that they extract the phosphorus and be able to bring them back to the fields again. Well, the phosphorus is of course important, also the nitrogen, but these are just two of the examples.
Per, another question. The example of nitrogen and phosphorus, will this be profitable for companies and even for society?
When it comes to the nitrogen example, I would say that it's definitely profitable directly today. When it comes to the phosphorus, we have a challenge. And what is the challenge? Well, today we are not allowed to use the high quality phosphorus that we extract in Europe. So we will be forced, if we're gonna sell it to high quality applications outside of Europe. And of course, this is very complicated. Why? Because the European legislation has set the demand that origin comes before quality. So if it has been waste, you're not allowed to use it. And of course, we know that this will need to change. Otherwise, those processes will be extremely important for society and in the long run, of course, also profitable. Let me take potassium as an example. Here we are already building the first factory in the northern part of Stockholm. Where do we source the phosphorus? No, the potassium. We source the potassium from fly ashes. So after incineration of household waste, we out of the ashes, we then can separate the different salts. And the most valuable ingredients or the most valuable resources here are the potassium. When it comes to the total mix today, what we're doing today with our product or with ashes is that you need to landfill it. But our method means that you don't need to landfill anymore. So the waste to energy plant can now, from 2022, decide to go circular instead of being the end of the liner process. When it comes to the climate effect, just the salt, if you take those as an example, they will reduce the carbon emissions big time compared to if you're going to produce them from today's virgin production, if you're going to mine them from the salt mines in Germany as an example. So they will have a positive climate effect. And the leftover will be a silica that has almost the same chemical substance as Portland cement, and hopefully can replace cement or be an ingredient in cement production, and of course then reduce the carbon emissions big time for the concrete production. So here, as I said, we are now building the first factory north of Stockholm at Högbytorp, and it will be up and running from 2022. And it will take approximately 150,000 tons of ashes. So it will be a huge factory and produce a lot of resources that we know that the world needs from what has been a problematic waste. Let me end with an example in Estonia. And this is an example how we are taking care of environmental debts. In Estonia, the incineration or the energy production are based on oil shale ash, oil shale production. And after the incineration of the oil shale, there's a leftover that is ash. And they have been producing this since the late 1890s. And it has stockpiled ash, so it contains more than 600 million tons of ashes, or the same size as the Maldives. So it's a huge part of the surroundings of Narva. What we have done is that we develop a method where we can take the ash as an ingredient and then mix it with carbon dioxide. So it becomes a carbon capture utilization process. So carbon dioxide doesn't need to go up in the atmosphere. It becomes a part of the production method, and we're going to produce calcium carbonate. Today, how do you produce calcium carbonate? Well, you take up ore from the mines in Gotland and incinerate the chalk, and then you create the calcium carbonate after that. In the future, hopefully, you won't need to do this. This is in a research state, but this is an example of how we are decided to innovate and research in order to develop new solutions. I would like to end with a quote from Ragn-Sells that that we see a beginning where others see an end. And here you have 4 examples how we have been able to solve challenges in society where others has failed. So hopefully you are inspired and can look on your company how you can change your business models going forward.
Thank you, Per, for an interesting presentation. A final question. Ragn-Sells is a big company, but what about smaller companies? What can they do?
In all those cases where we are developing our circular solutions, collaboration is a key factor. We can't do any of those without collaborating with societies and other stakeholders. So you need to find out the circular economy will mean that we will have new business models in place where a lot of companies, together with society, will collaborate to solve it. So you need to find where are your place in the circular economy. If you are not a player, if you're not a part of any value chain, you will cease to exist. Exactly what that was the insight we had for 5 years ago. And here you have some of the result of the research and the development we've done just for the last 5 years. And we definitely collaborate with a lot of small companies that we are dependent on in several of the processes. And I would like to end with a picture demonstrating the circular economy. And here we put the city in the center, because it's the cities that are growing on a global perspective. It is the cities that are demanding more resources. So try to find out, how will the cities grow near to you? How can you serve the growing circular economy that will be demanded in the cities? Thank you from Sweden, and we'll love to come back and talk more about when we have the factories up and running, what is happening and how much more innovations we have developed.
Thank you. Now we'll move on from Sweden to Norway, and Nina Agard from Nordic Innovation. Welcome.
I'm really happy to be here in Vaasa Energy Talk, so thank you for the invitation. So I'm Nina, I come from Nordic Innovation. We are an organization funded by the Nordic Council of Ministers, 20 people from all the corners of Nordics working together in Oslo. Our task is to support the sustainable growth of our region. We work for the Nordic Vision 2030, the Nordic region to become the most sustainable and integrated region in the world by 2030. Sustainable in 3 dimensions: green, competitive, and socially sound. We focus on digital integration and circular business models as tools for the green transition. Our program, Nordic Sustainable Business Transformation, is supporting Nordic companies in their transfer to circular business models with competence and tools. We are challenging industries for a circular future. We are intermediators, support ecosystems, and enable cross-border collaboration. Circularity is not only about material management. It is economic reasoning, incorporating strategy in the design of solutions, processes, systems, and governance. By repurposing these, we create sustainable and financially viable future business. It demands systematic work, involving and engagement not only in a company, but in the whole value chain of the company. It is estimated that 600 billion euros can be saved annually with circularity, providing a huge opportunity for companies that are ready to act. Circularity is a way of changing business operations for the new demands from green and digital transition. It's about problem solving together with the partners in a value chain. Simplified, the demand of the future is the whole value chain and value creating process, not only the product.
We have a question for you, Nina. How does the circular transition affect the market?
Circular economy is, as we speak, redefining capital markets. Circular economy models are industry born, but the financial market is enabling the transition. Investors in all sizes require circularity to a larger extent than before, simply because they measure and they can see the benefits. Companies with circular business models do better than companies with a traditional linear business models. What comes to public investments, they are directed towards portfolios with focus on sustainable development goals, covering all industrial sectors from energy manufacturing to food and services. And institutional investors, banks, insurance companies, funds are doing the same. Morgan Stanley, BlackRock, just name few big ones. And venture capital is also increasingly interested in companies with sustainable and circular business models. Sustainability is all about creating long-lasting results, not only green, but also with positive social impact. Triple bottom line is the very key to the sustainability, and circular models are tools for that.
Another question for you, Nina. How does the pandemic affect the green transition as a business opportunity?
Green transition is essential for the recovery from the economic consequences of COVID-19. Governments and public sector are supporting transition with incentives such as tax reductions and grants, and now also as a part of the recovery plans. Large public funds are already allocated to support packages in line with EU Green Deal. Investors, they are facing risks, and therefore they are increasingly looking repurposed and redesigned products and solutions. It's important to understand that the circularity has to be truly incorporated into the business models. Saying is not enough. The competition is severe, and those with proven circular models and positive, measurable impact on sustainability are more likely to survive. And this brings me actually to my last point. Survive or die. Future is for those that adapt fast. Thank you.
As we heard, there will be demands on companies in the future. Thank you, Nina, for eye-opening points. Next out is Anna-Maija Paju-Kallio from the Ministry of the Environment in Finland. Welcome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would first like to thank you for the organizers for the opportunity to talk about Finnish circular economy policy. It's very important for me. Secondly, I'd like to thank also the previous speakers for interesting presentations. Due to the time slot, I will not go into the details, but I try to tell something about our motivation to circular economy, about our new program on circular economy, and something about EU and Finnish circular economy policy focusing on this year. About the motivation, why we need circular economy. Circular economy offers additional measures to combat climate change. Switching to circular economy in the EU alone could cut industrial emissions by more than half by 2050. According to Finnish Environmental Centre, circular economy measures can clearly reduce domestic CO2 emissions in key areas of economy, with the exception of textiles and electronics. And the Finnish government has an ambitious goal of being carbon neutral in 2035, and for this we need circular economy. According to the International Panel on Biodiversity, circular economy reduces the need for the introduction of new materials, and it reduces also emissions and the pressure on the environment caused by climate change. And we need circular economy to contribute to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. At the same time, circular economy is a way to safeguard welfare and resilience of the society and strengthen the economy. It offers a way to strengthen Finland's export-driven economy and employment.
There's a question, Anna-Maija. Do you think Finland will be carbon neutral 2035? Is it realistic?
My answer is yes. The target is ambitious, but we have also ambitious government, and they are really committed to take the necessary steps. We are currently working on revising our Climate Act. We are preparing our medium-term climate plan and updating our climate and energy strategy. And of course, we have a circular economy in our toolbox. We have had many strategies promoting circular economy since 2005. We didn't call them circular economy at that time, but they were aiming at the same target. The most important is National Roadmap to Circular Economy. This was published first 2016 and then updated 2019, and it was led by a Finnish Innovation Fund, Sitra, and also the ministries were involved. However, the transition to circular economy is still underway. Sanna Marin's government program is very ambitious. It sets as a goal, which is really ambitious. The circular economy should form a foundation for a new economy. And to reach that, we need a horizontal strategic circular economy program and the related indicators. I'm happy to say that we published the program called New Directions in 13th of January. It's a proposal for a program, and now it will be followed by a government decision, which will be based on the program. And this draft will be circulated for comments, so everybody can have a saying on that. The program was prepared as a collaborative effort between ministries, led by Ministry of Environment and Ministry of Economic Affairs and Employment. It involved research institutes, the Finnish Innovation Fund Sitra, Business Finland, and several companies and municipalities. Working like Professor Reijo Karhinen chaired the steering group, we had 4 thematic groups. 1, real estate and construction, 2nd, municipalities and regions, 3rd, energy and material intensive industry, and 4th, emerging technologies and new business models. They were chaired by CEOs and 1 mayor. This all was supported by a citizens jury, and also we had a brainstorm platform. We had a dialogue with 4 scientific panels, 1 of them being climate panel and 1 economy policy council. How we will do it? The vision for the program is a carbon neutral circular economy is the foundation of our successful economy. Our goal is to have a cap in the domestic use of natural resources and doubling the resource efficiency and the circular material use. And the key success areas are circular economy ecosystems, digitalization of circular economy, education and skills, servitization as business. And to make that happen, we need the whole society, industry from big material and energy intensive industry to CMAs, municipalities and regions, real estate and construction, and of course all the people, all the consumers. There were more than 40 proposals or recommendations in the program, so I just want to pick up the key ones. The first, we will create the best circular economy expertise in the world in Finland by reforming the education system and working life expertise. We will put carbon neutral circular economy in the center of economic policy and economic reform. We will use also the EU's recovery fund, hopefully. We will make Finland a leading country in the digital circular economy by opening and linking material and data flows. We create sustainable criteria. We create sustainable circular economy market through legislation, economic instruments, and digitalization. Public procurement is also important. We procure and also design low carbon circular economy solutions in the public sector. We will significantly reduce the environmental impact of construction, and we will sign a national voluntary agreement on the use of natural resources with companies and municipalities. We will make the circular economy one of our foreign policy priorities.
There's another question, Anna-Mai, for you. This is very ambitious programs. Do you think Finland is very good at waste management and circular economy? Are we forerunners here in Finland?
I think that in many ways we can call us forerunners. Circular economy has been in our agenda for a long time. We have a lot of expertise and knowledge and also many good examples. And we are very good in eco-innovations. Sitra has compiled a list called the most interesting companies in the circular economy, and I think this list is impressive. However, the systemic transition to circular economy hasn't happened yet. not in Finland, and I think not in anywhere. And what comes to waste management, we have advanced technology, but I think that we have still a lot to do if you think about recycling rates, for instance. So that was about our program, and now I quickly talk something about EU policy. Commission published its first circular economy action plan in 2015. It was called Closing the Loop. It had altogether 54 actions, one of which was a so-called waste package. A mini package was published in 2018, and it had also European strategy for plastics in it, and it was followed by a directive called Single-Use Plastics Directive. A new Circular Economy Action Plan was published March 2020, and it was called For a Cleaner and More Competitive Europe. It has 35 actions or legislative frameworks initiatives, and it focuses on sustainable policy and the entire life cycle. So the previous one was too much focused on waste, and this is focused on the first part, on the product policy and the entire life cycle. To give some examples what are late this year, one is the EU waste package, which is really ambitious. And to say about the EU legislation, it's very often, it's if you think about Finnish waste and product policy, it's mainly based on EU policies. This is good for internal markets, and it levels the playing field in Europe, but it also means that it's a bit complex and might be difficult to implement, and we have a lot of expectations about legislation, but our hands are somewhat tired. But talking about the EU waste package, there is a need to increase the recycling of municipal and packaging waste, and we need to have a more stringent separate collection systems. We need to reduce the amount and harmfulness of waste. We have to harmonize the extended producer responsibility systems. We are streamlining and promoting sustainable recycling by end of waste criteria and byproducts criteria. And to improve the monitoring, we have to have a new kind of a national data system. And this all means that we are going to have big changes in our Finnish Waste Act. There has been lots of political difficulties considering that, but they are now solved. Giving some EU examples, what's going to happen here this year, this is not a comprehensive list. For instance, we have already a regulatory framework for batteries, a proposal, and it covers the whole entire life cycle. We are going and we're waiting for a legislative proposal for a sustainable product policy initiative. This is probably based on Eco-Design Directive, widening its scope from energy. We are going to have changes in packaging waste legislations. There's going to be a renewal of emissions directive. So we're going to have more circular economy in emissions directive. We are going to have a revision of end-of-life vehicles legislation and waste shipment rules. And also we are going to have a proposal on substantiating green claims. There are lots happening on plastics. We are waiting for a strategy for textiles and for sustainable built environment, and we already have a chemical strategy. And we know that Commission will also scope the development of further the EU-wide EU and byproduct criteria and so on. So there is lots on the plate. What happens in Finland this year? I give some examples. We have 2 reviews of Waste Act. First, to implement the waste package that we already talked about. Then the second one to implement Single-Use Plastic Directive. And also we are implementing some national reforms or improvements for instance, our waste management register or shipping documents. We are going to focus on end-of-waste concepts. We will set a national working group to develop and streamline the concept nationally and also follow it and in EU. We are aiming to have our first government decree on crushed concrete this year, and we shall work also on recycled fertilizers, plastics, and treated incineration slag. We are preparing new legislation on excavated soil. We are also working on waste taxation and other policy instruments. And last but not least, we are updating National Waste Plan and revising National Chemicals Strategy. I thank you all for listening, and as a conclusion remark, I would like to say that circular economy is a way to safeguard welfare in a climate-smart Finland. It offers solutions to environmental and to economic challenges, so it's a win-win for environment and the economy. So let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna-Maija. Finally, a question about waste taxation. Will these taxes be remarkable for companies that don't have a focus on recycling or material savings?
I think that they don't be that remarkable. We have had taxation since 1996, if I remember correctly, so it's nothing new. The scope has been on those wastes that can be recycled. However, the amount of the tax has been the same for a very, very long time, and we have to think and reconsider, should we perhaps widen the scope? So this will be done. We have already done a sort of preliminary study on that, and I think that it will not affect severely. And the main thing is that landfilling is the last option, so we should avoid it and rather use more sophisticated methods and recycling.
Thank you. We move on to Denmark, and Kasper Larsen has done an amazing journey with his company. Please let us know more about your transition.
Hi, and thank you. My name is Kasper, and thank you so much for letting me join the EnergyVaasa today. Thank you to all of you for letting me tell you the journey of KLS Pureprint. In many ways, KLS Pureprint is a traditional print company. It was founded in 1945 by my granddad and my great-granddad, and I'm the fourth generation and the commercial director at KLS. We looked into a huge problem back in 2007. We had just had a new professional board of directors, and we could not see that we would survive, to be honest, the rest of the year. So we had to find a new strategy, and then we looked into a lot of different strategies, but we had the major concern that in our industry, the market was declining, and that was what we looked into. The companies closed in our industry. To give you an example of the figures, within the last 13 years, when we began the strategy, we were more than 2,000 printers in Denmark, and today we're less than 50 of the printers left in the industry. So this has been a really tough journey for the industry. I'm quite sure that has been the same for the graphic industry in your companies in Sweden and Norway and Denmark. But this was what we looked into, and we needed to find a new strategy, and we decided to be really humble and go for the strategy that we wanted to be the most sustainable print company in the world. And how do you do that? Well, you cannot measure that, but that was our vision. We want to be the most sustainable print company. And to begin where we began, it was with looking into our climate focus, our environmental focus. And from 2007 until roughly 2013, we declined our carbon emission by more than 75%, or we reduced our carbon emission with more than 75%, looking into more than 200 different projects to reduce electricity use, heating, water. But what I think we have been most known for in Denmark is our focus on electric cars. We were the first company in Denmark to have an electric van. Yeah, I know now why, because that was not a good investment. But anyway, we had a lot of takes on that part. We had more success with our electric company cars. In 2011, we decided it was not allowed to buy any diesel or gasoline-driven electric cars. And today we have driven more than 1 million kilometers in electric cars. But again, we've done a lot of different projects to reduce carbon emission and environmental impact.
There's a question, Kasper, to you. You have changed your business model very early. Do you think it's very much costs, and was it difficult to change your journey?
Well, we changed the strategy because we had to. We could not survive doing business as usual. So yeah, I think that was a big motivation. Actually, not being able to see if you would survive as a company the next 3 months. So I think that was our motivation, to be ambitious. And yeah, again, it's important for me to say that this was all about saving the company and not saving the world when we looked into this sustainable strategy. And the cost, well, of course, it has been costly to do some of the projects, but actually now when we look back on all those more than 200 projects, in average they have had a financial turn back in less than 2 years. So it's to be honest, it's common good business to look into reducing electricity and heating and looking into our electric cars. We have saved more than 21% per car per kilometer that we have driven compared to diesel. So it's good business, pure and simple. But again, in 2013, we had a new board member, Gitte Haahr, who challenged us to look into the products. And during that period of time, we also saw some articles in Danish newspapers. One of them is that all microwave popcorn are toxic. That's a little, yeah, it's a headline. But that's due to the barrier in the packaging that actually migrate with harmful chemicals into the popcorn. Looking into recycled fibers, we are really proud as an industry that we are reusing wood fibers a lot of times, but reused fibers are not allowed to be in direct food contact. So actually in Denmark we have a recommendation that if you, for instance, bake with cupcake forms, you should remove the cupcake form immediately after you take the cupcake out of the oven to reduce migration of harmful chemicals into the things you have baked. We didn't like this. We didn't think it sounded good. And with a little help from the Danish fund to help companies develop into new green strategies, Grøn Omstillingsfond, which we joined back in 2014. And we worked in that program until May 15, where we succeeded being the second print company in the world to reach a cradle-to-cradle standard. Google in Austria beat us and were the first company in the world. And actually, Google in Austria today is one of our closest partners, together with Fergeli in Switzerland, who joined the pure print community as well. And we develop materials together, more or less, with competitors. But for us, it makes sense to be able to share the cost of developing new materials, and then we all have equal rights to use the materials. This is a really strong way to work together in partnerships. And today we have a full product program in both printing and packaging. And then looking into the Sustainable Development Goals. We love all 17 Sustainable Development Goals, but I think it's important that you choose the ones where you can make a real difference. And for careless, it's number 3, about health and removing harmful chemicals. It's number 12. And yeah, I'm sure you can read what it says in the targets, but it's all about reducing, or actually removing the whole idea of making waste. So it should also be looked at as resources. And finally, target number 15, about forests. And this is where we are actually, I think, quite good in the Scandinavian countries. Of course, it's mostly Sweden and Finland that produces cardboard and paper. And we have all the FSC certifications that you probably all know about sustainable foresting. And this is a way that we can actually make a change compared to a lot of the low wage countries by having high standards. So these three targets are the ones that we work with.
Kasper, your talk about these goals you have, do you think it's important to understand and to work together towards these goals? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's really important that we can have the same way of communication about sustainability as companies or organizations or governments, that we all work with sustainable development goals as a platform of talking about sustainability. Because sustainability is a lot of issues, from social issues to the more environmental focused or climate focused issues, and this way we can all find the sustainable development goals where our company can do the real difference. But please do not choose too many. Take 2, 3, or 4 sustainable development goals where you can make a real difference, or where you probably could have some real bad issues, and then try to solve them. And just to give you an idea on how we work together with companies, we had a challenge from Unilever, who challenged us to develop a new doggy bag, because the doggy bags that we have in Denmark are not usually used. So could we make a doggy bag that did not contain any plastic, that was approved for direct food contact, and where we remove this awkward moment where you have to ask for it? And after 13 prototypes, we ended up with the treat box. And today they are located around in Danish restaurants. You can, if you can't eat everything on your plate, then you can go up to the and pick up a treat box, fold it, and then you can bring home your food. This is approved for direct food contact. There's no plastic, and it's actually compostable. So when it has been in food contact, you're not allowed to put this into reused fibers, but this one has been approved for composting, so we can throw it into the green bin, and it will be into biogas, and in the remaining part could be used as fertilizer on the fields. So no waste at all. And I also promised to have a little bit about our experiences so far. We working with sustainability, and to be honest, business as usual will always be the easiest thing to do, but you will also have the same output. And then if you decide to go into this new strategy or an ambitious strategy, remember to include your organization. Also, when you don't have all the answers, it's important to include the organization. When we developed the Cradle to Cradle strategy, we told our organization, this is what we want to do, but please don't talk about it because we want to be the first to do it. And that way we communicated really closely with our organization, both when things doesn't succeed, but also when they succeed. And this is also a really important take. Remember to celebrate when something is a success. Stop, celebrate it. This is important. And then try to find the ambassadors. Try to find the people or the person that really wants to work with sustainability. This is also important talking to your supplier. This is important talking to your customers, and try to find those ambassadors to help you, especially talking to new customers. And then embrace what is difficult. Have this mindset that if anybody comes to you and say this will be really difficult, then say, yes, it's good it's difficult, because then for sure it will be more difficult for our competitors. Looking more into the partnerships, we really love this new way of working together with our suppliers and our customers, the joint value stream. We have never been so dependent of our suppliers, or for instance our ink supplier, but again they have never ever created so much value for us either. So having the joint value streams brings value in the entire process, and we also love to work together with our customers developing new packaging for them to sell more products. So joint value streams are really important, and look for partnerships in new ways. It could be your competitors that could be your new partners. Have an open mind about that, and then always look into where you will be if your competitor take this strategy. Try to imagine that. just to feel the sense of urgency. But anyway, all of this is fine and good, but what is the outcome? And for us, the outcome has been that since May 15, we've had more than 150 new customers. For instance, today we print all the tray liners from McDonald's in both Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark. And this is just one example of a customer that we only got to work together with because of the cradle-to-cradle certification and the pure print. Looking into the growth, we are in a declining market, but despite of that, we have actually had organic growth, not in 2020 due to COVID. But the positive side is actually that we have been influenced less than the average in the industry in 2020 as well. And we have actually managed to have the organization intact. We've had a lot of PR. During the last 4 years, we've been in the news 4 times. Both, for instance, when the new government wanted to launch a new strategy about packaging, they wanted to use us as an example of a company that could produce without any fluor chemicals in the packaging. That was in August 19, or again in November 2020, where they wanted to bring a story about companies who actually worked a lot with climate issues and made it a good business. And for both of them, we were the example. And we have had more than 50 articles written about KLS during the last 5 years. So all in all, for KLS, this is not something that we do whenever we feel like or we have the time. For us, sustainability is the very key to survival in our industry.
Thank you, Kasper, for sharing your story. It's a great job you've done. Do you think it's difficult for companies in other branches to make the same change?
It's a huge effort. It's really difficult to start this transition. It will always be easiest to do business as usual. But you have to do this. And I think we are the good example that is good business. Sustainability is not about something that you do whenever you have the financial situation to do it. That's philanthropy. It has to be good business, and it is good business. And we have, as a nickname in the Danish industry, we have been called the bumblebee of Danish industry, because we have succeeded with this strategy in a declining market, in a really challenged industry. So of course it's possible, but you need to be ambitious, you need to dare.
Thank you. With a wide perspective on circular economy and good advices from our previous speakers, we'll now move on to take a look at the circular roadmap and action plan for the Ostrobothnian region. Rasmus is ready to tell us more about that.
Thank you, Nora, and thank you to EnergyVaasa Talks for giving us this opportunity to present our work about the practical roadmap for companies in Ostrobothnia. From previous speakers and from the media, we know that there is a lot of change, a lot of pressure building. We have the Agenda 2030, we have the European Green Deal, and we have the new initiatives from our government that Anna-Maja told us about, that are moving us to a circular future. The future will be circular. Also, if we look at the trends and the changes that we see today, we see that consumers are more and more interested and are asking for sustainable solutions. We also hear that employees, especially younger generation employees, are asking companies about their sustainability work and how they think about the environment in their resourcing and so on. And we also heard, for example, from Kasper, that the businesses, if they are to prosper in the future, they will have to do this change. They will have to become circular. We have also the words from Gro Harlem Brundtland when she was in the United Nations. Sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And this is very important to remember. We need to find a way to work today, thinking about tomorrow, and giving us the ability to also work tomorrow. We have identified several things why you would like to do circular things and why you would like to have a circular business. We have looked at 4 things. They are both intangible and tangible. If we're looking at the intangibles, you will have to think about the branding of your company, what image your company will give out to the public and to the consumers and to your partners as well. There's also a risk reduction in this. Resources will become scarce, as we've heard from Per. And this means that if you don't have a circular way of sourcing, you might find yourself in troubles regarding resources. And of course, there are the most tangible things. I mean, you will have increased sales if you are circular, and you will have decreased if you continue with the linear business models. Also, you have cost savings. When you start looking at your energy solutions and so on, definitely your carbon neutral impact or your carbon footprint, these will have an impact on your businesses. We have found 10 top activities for becoming sustainable, or for the companies to become sustainable in Ostrobothnia. I'm not going to go through them all. You can read them in our roadmap, of course, but there are things like the energy, of course, and how self-sufficient are you as a company, or are we as a region, will be interesting. Maybe sustainable tourism is something that we need to look at, and the whole way of thinking and living needs to change. One of the things that we have identified as a very key element for Ostrobothnia is creating a kind of a knowledge network, or let's call it a competence center for Ostrobothnia in circular things and sustainability. This is something that we would like to put a lot of energy on in the future to come. Why will Ostrobothnia succeed? Well, that is of course the $1,000 question, or $1 million question actually. Well, we do have the qualifications. We have actually started this journey, although with small baby steps, but we are already on the way, and there are good benchmarking examples in Ostrobothnia. But above all, Ostrobothnians, we have the will to do. We want to do this. We want to show that we can do it. And we have clear goals. By 2030, Ostrobothnia will be the most circular and sustainable region in the Nordic. That is our goal. Well, to get there, we've created a checklist of 11 steps. Again, read about it in the roadmap. I'm not going to go through with it. Best thing is to get started and then look at the different steps. So, and also, it's me and my colleagues, Göran and Thomas. We have been working with circular economy and sustainability things and the roadmap for Ostrobothnia. We are available at the development companies, in all development companies in Ostrobothnia. If your company needs help, just give us a call and we'll be there to help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rasmus. And we welcome back Thomas and Göran for a short discussion. It was said that consumers and workers are asking for a change. How is it, Thomas? Have you seen this in your region?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm working in Jakobstad Pietarsaari region, which is a very export-oriented region. And I would say that most of at least the global international companies have the same message when we talk to them. Customers, employees, partners are more and more asking for sustainable solutions. So I really think this journey has to start. But it's a long journey for most of the companies. As Rasmus said, many of the companies in Ostrobothnia has already begun, so we have good examples. But I really think it's a long journey. It's not a trip over the weekend to make the transition into a circular economy.
But you, Göran, you have seen circular business models. What's your experience?
Yes, my experience from the companies here in Vaasa region, we already have companies that have lost their offers, and I think if we, let's say, in 10 years, companies that haven't focused and changed their mindset, they will be on the market anymore. That's my opinion.
And Rasmus, you presented 11 steps towards this transition. Are these steps that companies have to do at once?
Well, no, absolutely not. And for some companies, depending on their business and the region and their maybe not all steps. So I think the important is to get started, do an evaluation, which steps are most relevant for you, which steps do you feel you can do, and get started. And then, as Thomas said, it's a long journey. So start somewhere and take the steps you need to get forward.
And I understood that companies can ask help from you if they're thinking about a change towards circular economy.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Göran, Rasmus, Thomas. And thank you all for watching. We hope this has been inspiring for you to make changes towards a more sustainable mindset. We also want to thank our speakers today and our partners. A recording of this webinar will be available later this week, so keep an eye out for the link.